Call the meeting to order for our annual audit report. And you have here, you should have this. If you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Evan Cleveland, audit partner with Insurance Company CPAs, and with Ms. Michaela OACSD, audit supervisor, and we're here to present the results of the 2024 audit. So thank you very much for being able to meet with us today. We apologize we weren't able to meet the 7th board date, which we planned on just based on timing when we received some audit information. So we appreciate being able to meet with us today. We did submit to the state on time already, so that's all been taken care of. So now we're just going to review the audit results. We're going to work mostly on the executive summary, which should be the top document in your packets. So we have issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. It's otherwise known as a clean opinion. It's the opinion that you want to get. It means your assets, liabilities, net assets, revenues, expenses are all fairly stated in all material respects. We also perform an audit under government auditing standards and issue a report on internal control or financial reporting. Also unmodified clean opinion, no issues of note within that letter. We also perform an audit of the federal programs because the school district expended over $750,000 in federal awards. We perform a single audit, issue a report on each major federal program. And also unmodified opinion, no issues of note. Total federal expenditures were $2.5 million. We tested the child nutrition cluster, which is the free and reduced price lunch and breakfast for all students, and that was $1.2 million of the total. And if you remember last year, we had this net cash resources finding that was on there for a very long time, and at June 30, 24, you were below the 3-month average, so we got to get rid of that finding. Only one so far this year of being able to get rid of it. So.
Something we truck purchase?
Yeah. So the next page just has a few more letters. We issue a management comment letter that has no concerns or issues noted. We use the comment letter for any communications of deficiencies in internal control, which we had none. We also perform an audit of the extra classroom funds, also unmodified clean opinion. We issue a management comment letter associated with the extra classroom funds that did have some current year findings, a lot of recurring findings from the previous year associated with documentation, overdrawn balances, profit and loss statements, timely deposits, and active clubs. Really, extra classroom is very difficult for all districts to oversee. You're really there in a custodial fiduciary capacity. You're overseeing students trying to set rules in place, and really it's their responsibility to follow them. So very difficult to have no findings with extra class. I think only 1 of 30 schools had no findings. So
how'd they do that? Did they just get rid of it?
it's luck of the draw on what ones we pick.
I think that's the only way.
Yeah, really, yeah.
Get rid of it.
Amen.
Marcy would love that.
Yeah, there was no steering us to what ones to pick this time. We had to.
Yeah.
So the next page, we're required to communicate with those charged with governance at the conclusion of the audit and do so through a specific letter. And it has no comments of concern to report regarding any of these bulleted items. And next, I'll turn it over to Michaela to start going over some of the numbers.
So this chart represents the governmental activities of all the fund activities. State sources increased this year 6%, and this is mainly due to the Smart School Bond Act and an increase in basic state aid. Operating grants and real property both decreased about 1%, and then other revenue also decreased 4%. But this is because in the 2023, the school district received a large payout when they exited the BT Health Insurance Consortium, so that just explains that difference. And then the next page shows the governmental activities expenses. Instructional expense is 75%, which shows 75% of every dollar is going back to support the children, and this is up 1% from last year. And then general support decreased 2%, which is mainly due to less capital project activity in the current year compared to prior year. So the next page is focusing just on the general fund. So general fund assets increased 12.2%, or approximately $1.9 million. And this is mainly due to increase in cash and investments in the T-bills. Due to other funds also decreased, but this was because general fund was owed money from the capital fund in prior year. That wasn't in the current year. And then total liabilities increased 19.7%, or approximately $704,000. Mainly due to an increase in unearned revenue, which that is the lease with BT for the tech building. And then the next page shows the total fund balances, which increased 12.2%, or approximately $1.2 million. And this is mainly due to increases in the restricted fund balance for TRS reserve, and assigned fund balance also increased due to income taxes. Total revenues increased 3.7%, or $2 million, and this is mainly due to increases in the state sources for OACSD, general aid, and mobile sports betting. The next page is general fund expenditures, which increased 6.6%, or approximately $3.4 million. And this is mainly due to increases in construction costs with salaries. And then also interfund transfers also increased, and this is due to a $2.5 million transfer to the capital fund. And then under the other governmental funds, the capital outlay decreased approximately $3.6 million, and this is mainly due to less capital project activity in the current year. And then special aid revenues decreased approximately $3.6 million, and expenses decreased approximately $1.5 million. And this is mainly due to the education stabilization funds. Only $111,000 was spent in the current year, compared to prior year it was at $3 million. And these were just one-time payments to help the school with COVID. It wasn't expected to be an annual funding source. And if you look at the 2021 or 2020 numbers, the expenditures are comparable to those. And then moving to school lunch, it increased approximately 22.3%, and this is mainly due to OA becoming CET, or community eligibility provision, in the 23-24 school. And then school lunches also increased just due to cost of sales and general expenses. So the next page is the general fund reserve balance. So total fund balance increased 9.9%, and the largest increase is in the restricted fund balance, mainly due to the additions to the insurance reserve. And then the next page covers the 4% compliance, which you've been under the 4% compliance for 23, 22, and 2020, and in the current year, which is good. And then the next page is just the general fund reserve activity, which increased 10.8%, and mainly coming from the additions in the insurance reserve and the TRS, and then $500,000 was appropriated from the capital reserve in the current year. The next page talks about the general fund budget. So total revenue had a favorable variance of 2.82%, which is a decrease from the prior year of 7%, but it is more accurate with a lower percentage. And then total expenditures had a favorable variance of 6.3%, which is an increase from prior year, which was 2.92%. The next page does have the 2023 budget if you want to do any comparisons on any specific lines. And then the following page is the net position analysis, which presents all the funds combined into the government-wide. The large deficit in the unrestricted fund is mostly consists of the GASB 75 OPEB liability, which is based on actuary assumptions and projected out. And there's no way to fund all of that liability, and when we do reconcile out that large liability, you're sitting at approximately 3.3 in that position.
So the purpose of this is just to show you these two really big items you're required to report because of auditing or accounting standards, and breaking them out as to why you have this big deficit, $96 million, showing every single school district that we audit, a lot of municipalities, they all look underwater because of this massive liability you're required to report, calculated by an actuary out to the year 2095, taking into account what you'll owe on future retiree health insurance. Takes into a lot of assumptions, how long people are going to live, how long they'll stay employed, when they'll retire, future medical trend rates, that sort of thing. And spits out this massive liability that you're required to report. And again, as Michaela said, there's no way of funding it. You will continue to pay as you go, budget as you go, annually, until GASB changes the standard. So it's not like you owe $103 million. Next page is current and future accounting standards. So this year we adopted GASB statement 100, so we're in triple digits now, and this had no effect on the statement, so just changed presentation factors. If you had a major fund, change it to a non-major fund. If we had a correction of an error, that sort of thing. So none of that happened this year, so it didn't have an effect on the statements. And we've got a few coming up over the next few years. GASB 101 compensated absences is the one that will have most of an effect on the school district. We'll work with the CBO in calculating the compensated absence liability. So that's your sick and vacation time. Each individual has accrued in their sick bank. That's multiplied by their rate of pay at year end and calculated into a liability. This new standard just does a little more probability and estimates involved in comparison to the existing one that's really cut and dry. Here's my sick balance, here's my rate of pay, this is what the school went out, sort of thing. So it puts in a little bit more calculating estimates. So any questions on the audit results or any of the numbers? So I don't know if you guys want to go over some of the footnote disclosures. I did include a few of the pages in your packets. Start with note 6, capital assets. Rather than printing out the entire financial report and having you flip through it to the pages that I've selected, we provided you with those pages for the year. So note 6 is your capital asset activity. So you added $5.7 million in total historical cost. A lot of that is the ongoing construction capital projects. That was $3.8 million, and then $1.2 million in furniture and equipment. Of that, $750,000 was buses. So continuing to upgrade the fleet annually. That was offset by depreciation on the assets and amortization on intangible lease assets. So there was a standard 2 years ago where if you're renting equipment, certain IT equipment, most schools rent from BOCES, so you rent computers and iPads and that sort of thing, you're required to report an asset and a liability. Next page, note 11. So the school district's required to report its proportionate share of the statewide pension systems it participates in. So that's the employees' retirement system, the ERS, and the teachers' retirement system, the TRS. So those had total net pension liabilities of $14.7 billion for ERS and $1.1 billion for TRS, and this is divided amongst all the participating municipalities and school districts. And your proportionate share that you were required to report was $2.6 million liability for ERS and a little over $1 million for TRS. And you see the proportions of the entire statewide pension system, 0.018% and 0.09%. So on the next page, the chart at the bottom just describes how they arrive at those net pension liabilities. So each system has its own year end, and really based on how the assets, the investments are doing for each system is how big the asset or liability that is divided amongst the employers is. So total pension liability for each of the systems was 240 billion and 138 billion. And that's also calculated by an actuary who comes up with this liability as well. Planned acquisition is the investments that plans are in, and that's subtracted out, so 225 billion and 137 billion. And then they arrive at what's split amongst all of the participating entities. So those were at 93.9% funded and 99.2% funded for the ERS and TRS. So up a little bit from the previous year of 90.8 for ERS and 98.6 for TRS. New York State's top 5 retirement system in the United States, very well funded. So no concern about future pension payments for anyone who's participating in the systems. Any questions so far? Awesome. So next page is note 12. So this is a big other post-employment benefit liability. It's calculated by the actuary. And there was a net increase on the liability of 17.1 million. Service cost is just what's earned by employees throughout the year. And then interest cost would be present value factor. So the liability is discounted as a present value rate, so this is bringing it one more year in the future. Then we had a big increase in differences between expected and actual experience of 18.7 billion. So the actuary looks back at what its estimates were in the previous year and says our medical trend rate needs to change, so does our inflation rate, and then as well as there was an increase in overall membership participating in the plan. So this caused a large increase in the liability and offset by some changes in assumptions. So because it's discounted, an increase in the discount rate means less money is needed now to meet future obligations, thus reducing the liability. So that offset the large increase in the year, that $87.7 million liability. The next page is the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. These are all the federal grants that are flowing through the school district. We tested the child nutrition cluster, which is more towards the bottom, 1.2 million. Last year, the total CFO was $5.3 million total. That was mostly due to the education stabilization fund, so the school worked really hard to spend down all its funds last year, leaving very little left to spend this year. So it was only $111,000 of the education stabilization fund, and that ended on the 30th of September for expenditures of that one-time 4-year grant. Final 2 pages are the schedule of findings and question costs. This is just like our executive summary, snapshot of the audit results, unmodified opinions on the financial statements and federal awards, and no audit findings for either area, and then it lists the program that we tested at the bottom and that the school district is considered a low-risk audit. So overall, the audit went really well. CBO was great to work with. They were really well prepared. We just had one big piece, the other post-employment benefit actuary report that took a little time to get to us. It's just why we're meeting today and not on the 7th. But we issued the report and it's to the state on time, so I'll open it up to any questions about the audit report or results or anything like that.
I have more of a general question about the workings between your company, OCs, and our internal claims, your external claims. So it looked like some of your report, particularly the first document, it looked like a claims. There were some claims kind of findings with the extra classroom.
Yeah.
Right? So you could just walk me through, or you could help too, like how do these all work together? Who does the claims auditing? How does
So I'm not sure if it does the claims auditing. That doesn't have an extra classroom. No.
Well, it looked
No,
like
that's
a finding that would be similar to some kind of within an audit. So I guess I'm just curious, who is doing what and how?
The students and the advisor.
No, I get that, I
And
get,
then
I get that.
They bring it
part.
to me to deposit and keep the overall record of each account.
Right.
Along with the, they keep their records, I keep my records.
Yeah, I'm looking more like, so you're gonna assess the district, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna have a role in terms of payments, contracts, all those things.
Yeah.
So what is your role specifically in this whole process?
Ultimately, our role is to opine on the financial statements.
Okay.
And to know whether there are any material weaknesses in internal control,
Right.
but ultimately to opine on the statements.
Okay, and yeah, so CBO does most of it.
Yeah,
CBO
CBO is
has
most
all
of the
the
accounting for
internal-
us.
They have all the internal systems in place for, like, I don't want to pay somebody without a contract. Like, it all goes through their approval process.
And then our internal,
The extra classroom is different.
well, we have extra class, who's the?
Heather's the internal. So Heather's role as internal claims auditor is if we have a BOCES charge. Heather reviews that and tells CBO that can be paid. So like BOCES can't,
Okay, new student move in, increase in
Yeah.
charge.
Yeah.
And so, the other districts and places I worked at, there was one of those claims auditor that really works for the board and not the district, is that correct?
I don't know.
Not
Who's
that I'm aware
responsible
of.
to the board?
So it'd be like a separate internal audit, so it would be
That's
another
like
firm
what
like
Julie
us
does.
that could come in and report to the board on internal audit. So the CBO has its own internal audit that's looking at all the activity, and they are CBO employee, but what you're, I think, getting at is it would be a separate firm that would do something like that.
Julie, we
And
use
Julie-
TST service.
Yes.
so we've got partners.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Good enough.
She does a risk assessment
Right, she
and
did.
then she comes back and does an area. We
She
do
did
it.
that, or she did hers earlier.
Correct, yes. Yeah.
So the gist of it all is the district did really well.
Yeah, on modified opinions, what you want to have, and every other school district has extra classroom findings. It's the nature of extra classes, really learning experience for students, and they want to follow
I'd love to know the one that did.
those Tioga.
Tioga.
We could figure
I
out.
talked to Kendra. I talked to her. In fact, their board president, Kathy, I saw her also, and she said, I expressed my frustration of getting ready for audit, and she said, our extra classroom is clean. She said I about fell over because that never happens, so, but,
It's rare.
yes,
Yeah.
Impressive.
what we strive for.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for being available to meet with us.
Nope, I will sign, I'll take everything to the next, board meeting.
Awesome.
We've submitted, Krista's submitted and we're good to go.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
And you're ready to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.